Your host, Josh Appleman, founder and CEO of Appleman Capital. Today we're joined with Joel Florek. Joel comes from humble DIY beginnings to managing 470 properties. Joel Florek boasts 57% asset growth. Outside of work, he treasures family time, nature explorations, and farm living. Joel, we appreciate you coming on the show today. If you could let the listeners know a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, hey, thanks very much, Josh. Husband, father of three, soon to be four. Wife maybe going into labor here any day now. So
Oh, wow.
exciting times here at the house.
Very cool.
But based in LaPorte, Indiana, originally from the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, and built my career in multifamily. Have a campground as well that we added into the portfolio. And yeah, excited to get a chance to talk more about the real estate journey that I've had, and what I like talking about most, the just amazingly positive effect that prudent investing and good management can end up having as an impact on your family's lifestyle and ability to achieve the goals that most of us set out to achieve by going down this path of investing.
Tell us about your first deal, because it all starts with one deal, and even before that, because you really have to gain the courage and knowledge to even go on your first deal in a lot of cases. So if you could just tell us how that all came about.
Yeah, I'm fortunate. I grew up with hardworking parents, middle class, both had jobs, but on the side, they'd typically every year we'd buy a house, we'd live in it, and we'd remodel it. Occasionally they'd hang on to it as a rental, but usually every year or two throughout my childhood, we were moving within the same town. And through that, I really got to understand what it took to take a older property and turn it into something that is beautiful and desirable. Ultimately, when I finished my degree in finance from Michigan Tech and started my career, I knew that working to get financial independence as soon as possible was the goal that I really wanted to focus on. And I started by going and picking up a 4-unit apartment building, lived in one unit, rented out the others, remodeled at night and weekends when I got done with work. And that's ultimately where it all began. $125,000, old converted property from the 1800s. And, the rest is history, as they say.
That's perfect. So you fixed it up, you gained some equity, you've got it rented, it started cash flowing, and then you refinanced it. Did you sell it?
That one I hung on to, and the next property that I was able to pick up was about 10 months later. Ended up getting an off-market direct-to-seller tip through a carpet installer that I had hired to help me out on one of my units, and got a chance to meet the owners of the 16-unit apartment building. They were the original developers about 20 years earlier. Built a nice rapport. And, after a couple months of going back and forth, trying to see if I could, get a deal done, ultimately we were able to work out a purchase where I got the bank to finance 80%. The sellers carried about 16.5% as a second position note. I got a personal loan from Wells Fargo for like another $8,500 after prorations. At closing, ended up being about $5,000 down to purchase, what was a pretty darn nice 16-unit apartment building in this small town where I had started my career and started investing. So within 10 months of graduating from college, I had 20 units in my portfolio, and was off to the races and thought, hey, this real estate thing is easy. I should be at a couple hundred units in the next year or so. It wasn't that easy, but certainly blessed for the wins and opportunities that came across my desk, and glad that ultimately I took action and had people who believed in me and were willing to finance from the bank's perspective, from the seller's perspective, and ultimately, a lot of hard work and execution, led to a track record that, helped spawn the next deal and the next deal from there.
Yeah, that's huge. And the cool thing is you did it. You did it just on your own, and you did it the hard way. You creative finance, and then you also doubled down and found a way to even close the gap on what else was needed thereafter. So there was no handouts, and you thought creatively, and you got it done. On that 16 unit, that was direct to the seller and really direct to developer too. Um, what was it a fix it up and refinance it, reposition it? Tell us about that, because a lot of the listeners need to hear this stuff, because this is how it starts.
Yeah, so this particular property was built in 93. I had purchased it in 2016. The owners, they did what is very typical of, smaller developers that, build and hang on to things, where, they did a nice job keeping up with the property, but they were very conservative with respect to the rental rates that they were charging, and they liked long-term tenants. They didn't want to see turnover, so they didn't push the asset very hard. So on paper, it wasn't that terribly exciting of an opportunity, but given the lesser quality property that I had just purchased in town and knowing the kind of demand that I saw, I was like, well, gosh, these rents that are $600 a month, they're easily $150 to $200 a month below where they should be without needing any major renovations to the property. Just your typical upkeep upon turnover, paint, general maintenance, occasionally some flooring kind of thing. So that was the business plan that I just slowly worked to execute, and obviously was trial by fire and learning along the way. So if I knew then what I know now, I would certainly have been able to execute the improvement of value for that property a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But it ended up working out to be a really good deal. A couple of years later, about a year and a half later after that purchase, I was able to get another 3-unit property in that town. So I ended up having a total of 23 units in that market. I had since moved about 500 miles south to Indiana, where my wife was from. And eventually I had sold that portfolio in 2021 of 23 units in that town to an investor that I still have regular conversations with. So
Tell us about what you would have done different, because you would have had the same exact resources, except now you've got additional knowledge in your head. What would have you done different to execute on a business plan faster?
yeah, there would have been some, additional capital that I would have, worked to try and get from the bank to, do a resurfacing of the parking lot, upgrading some landscaping, and then, turnovers. I would have leaned into a lighter renovation of those units, and likely would have been able to, get 900, 950 for those rents. So rather than that slower push up to 700, 750,
That's
then 800, then 850.
$350 delta between in place and where you would have
Where
had them.
where they could have gone, yeah. So ultimately, when I sold it, we had everything up in that 950 to $1,000 range
Nice.
for those units. But I could have gotten those a lot quicker. Just had I been a little bit more in tune with pushing that envelope and getting a little bit more aggressive. Again, I wouldn't change a thing. Like, at the end
Yeah.
of the day, it was a fantastic deal for me. Really helped provide me a boost of confidence and get me going. It provided a track record, which allowed me to have more valuable conversations with brokers, eventually investors. So I really look at that 16-unit deal as the catalyst that really allowed me to go down the path that I've ultimately gone down.
Yeah, I think you made a key remark there was the courage and the confidence because that's the only way to get there is stair stepping. One deal leads to another deal leads to another one. You went from a 4 unit to a 16 unit. That's scary in of itself when you're sitting on 4 units, and now it's, wow, what am I going to do with the 16 coming up? But once you go to 16, then you go to 32, 60, 100, and it's just a stair step of doing bigger deals, and you're learning a ton along the way as an operator.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah,
Um,
and being the guy wearing all the hats, right? I'm leasing, I'm doing the painting, the renovations, I was the guy running and doing the lawn mowing, and so I certainly understood what it took to be able to run properties and just the headaches that end up coming up. So that way, as I got bigger, I was much more keenly aware of, what it would take to turn around, other value add properties or just see opportunity a little bit clearer, when it was presented in front of me.
Yeah, I think a part of it is knowing when to get out of your own way too. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is you're out there mowing the grass when you could be looking at other deals, but at the same time, you were out there saving money by cutting the grass. So
Yeah.
you got to have one to have the other, and it's just you don't. I guess you don't know until you know, and then you look back, you're like, yeah, but it's all experiences. Tell us, I guess, what the are you currently the owner operator, or do you rely on third party property management?
We have property management in house for our
Okay.
multifamily and our campground that we've got in the portfolio. So I've got a great team in place. Right now, I've got things to where it's just a couple hours a week that it takes me to review the reports, approve invoices, and just have quick conversations once a week with our key management team members to just understand, hey, what's going on with these delinquencies, what's the plan. I take a look at our reports and then have a few probing questions that I can make sure that, hey, they're focused, they see the problems, they've got a plan of attack, and I don't need to do anything else. Or, hey, they're kind of running into an issue, and yeah, maybe they need some support in one capacity or another. But we've got some good processes and systems in place. You just talked about, when do you get out of your way, right? So I have early in my career, I had a lot of people that gave me a real hard time about all the different things that I would do within my properties. And most certainly I didn't enjoy mowing the lawns or doing the painting or, all the other things that I did hands on. My goal was to get large enough such that I could transition out of those jobs. The challenge that I had was, I was living off of my cash flow.
Yeah.
So I got out of my W-2 job as quickly as I could and, relied solely on, what I could squeeze out of the properties each month. And, the best way to do that at the time was being the guy who was, there getting my hands dirty and what have you. Um, uh, Looking back, I certainly missed out on just an amazing time frame to pick up properties that now I just, those would have been absolute home runs. Hindsight's 2020, right?
Yeah.
But once I jumped up to 80, I think like 85 units, the first employee that I hired was somebody in the office doing the property management, somebody who could be in charge of all the leases, dealing with utility companies, showings, collections, keeping up with property management suites, et cetera. That was the part of the job that I just really enjoyed the least, and I enjoyed the maintenance work better. So I stayed on that role until like 10 months later. No, I take that back. Like 6 months later from that office hire, then I got another deal done and was able to jump up and hire a full-time maintenance guy onto my team. So that was an awesome year when I could finally bring on full-time employees. but I also had to feed my family. So
Yeah.
there was a time when it was financially appropriate for me to take that jump, and it hurt when I did. But to your point, it freed me up to where I had the mental bandwidth to, figure out what I could do to expand as opposed to have the savers mindset.
Yeah, and then you're dealing with a whole new set of issues when you hire your first employee, because now you've got systems and processes that you need to put in place that were not there before because you were
Yep.
the system and the processes. So that's and that's another lever that is utilized to scale and grow as well. Just putting a CRM in place, and now job duties, responsibilities, and you've got the right players, right rock stars. You can begin to scale quickly thereafter, as long as you've got the right elements. People can also hold you back if you're still stepping in and doing their job for them too.
For sure. I am typically always the biggest bottleneck in the business. So I try as best as I can to provide power to my team members, allowing them to make decisions. One of the things I try to communicate to my team is as frequently as possible. The way that I'll get most frustrated as an owner, as a boss, is if I find out that you didn't make a decision.
Yeah,
I want to see my team members take action, do what they think is right. And if at the end of the day, I feel like they spent too much money or maybe their action wasn't the best approach, we'll have a conversation about how maybe we should do something different in the future. But I'm going to be happy that they took action as opposed to, sitting on their hands and just waiting for somebody to tell them what to do, because that's not why I'm hiring people, right? I'm hiring them for their brain power, their skill set, their expertise, and I want to try as best as I can to empower them to use that. And yeah, not everything's going to get done exactly the way I want, but it's awesome when you see things getting done in a way that you didn't necessarily know or think of to
oh
do.
yeah,
And you're like, oh, wow, nice job, team. Like, way to go. It feels good. We had, I'll tell you a quick story here. Uh, about a month ago, we had a sewage backup at one of our properties that we own. And I got a call in the afternoon from my property manager, and she was letting me know the situation. Frustrating, right? But the conversation was as simple as, "Yep, there was a sewage backup this morning. We had the folks out to rod the line. We had the remediation company out to, you know, suck all the gross stuff out of the units, sanitize, clean. We got dehumidifiers in all the units. Carpet is scheduled to be tore out and replaced on, it was like 2 days later. They had got us into an emergency slot, and all tenants are notified and, in line with what the process is. And we're also scheduling the, company that did the rotting to put us on a quarterly process, this quarterly schedule where they come in and will rot all the lines for like $150 for the 48 unit complex. So, the conversation was as little as 5 minutes for what for some people is this like ruin your day kind of moment. Like, yeah, it cost me 12 grand between all the emergency calls and replacing the carpet and so on and so forth. But my team knocked it out of the park. They did everything they should have done without needing any of my input or even feeling like they had to call me to get my blessing to do the stuff that they ended up doing. I would have told them to do exactly what they did. So,
that's huge.
it felt really good as an owner to, to see my team members just, feel confident about tackling the problems that come up in the business. It's not fun, but that's just a part of the game.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Bring me the question, but also bring me the answer. How would you handle this? If you've got a question, you needed some input. What would you do? So, and I think that
Yep.
that lifts them up as well, and gives you confidence that their decision making for good, bad, or worse, or indifferent. A decision has to be made. So as long as a decision gets made, it doesn't hold anybody up. So bring me the question, but also bring me the answer of what you would do. I think it helps keep things going.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that leads back to your team. Like you just said, you have to have a strong team behind you and confidence that you've got a strong team so you can continue to grow.
Mhm. Exactly.
So very cool. What has been your largest deal, and then I guess how did that come along, and what was the process?
Yeah, so, my sweet spot has been, kind of sub 50 unit deals. So I've, been able to do, a handful of those over the years, and, each of those have been very successful. We've got a fun one right now that I purchased it as a syndication, and it was back in late 2020. It was 40 units. There was 8 units that had burnt down with the prior ownership. They chose not to rebuild. So I purchased the property based off of kind of a forward projection as to what the stabilized value of this property would be. It's kind of a little bit of a gamble, a little bit of a bet, but I felt comfortable and confident, making the leap of faith that other buyers weren't willing to do. That bit, basic value add operational business plan went great for the handful of years that we executed that. Last year, December of 2022, it would have been, made the decision that I was interested in doing new construction,
Okay.
and that property would be the first one that we would take on. So I got my general contractor's license and, went through the engineering design process, site approval process with the local municipality, and we got approved to add 8 units to that project. So last year in July, we were able to break ground, and by November, we completed the construction of 8 new townhouse units on that property. And we were able to get all those leased up by January of this year. I put the property on the market just a couple of weeks ago, and we've had some very good interest, and likely going to be going under contract with a very reputable local buyer. So that project's going to end up, hopefully within the next couple of months, going full cycle. And really, really excited to see that one go through. There's been a lot of moving parts over the years with it, and it certainly feels good to add new product back into this community. The feeling of going from, fresh grass to, we have these units that people are moving into, and just, really excited about, their new home.
Yeah.
That's an awesome feeling.
Oh yeah, I wasn't there before.
Yeah. It feels really good. I did the designs for the buildings and floor plans, like I said, as the general contractor. So I was very hands-on through the project as our first development go around, and it's looking like it'll be kind of a good smashing success for us as long as everything goes smoothly over the next 2 months.
I think that's called a super value add when you can actually build additional units on the property. That's gonna be
Yep.
that should be very cool. And I'd say you syndicated that, so your investors are going to be very happy, I'm sure, with the outcome.
Yeah. I mean, it'll work out very well for us. I'm typically the largest investor in any deal that I do syndicate. I also purchase deals myself, so
Yeah.
yeah, it'll work out very well for everyone. We should well exceed the original projections that we had for the project.
Yeah, I think as a owner operator, you've got to have your own portfolio of your own properties that you own and manage. Because I mean, it's just if you can syndicate, it kind of complements what you've already got, your operations, because you're in the thick of it if you choose to. But I mean, there's nothing like owning your own properties and taking care of those. It's totally, and just being the operator day to day, you've got total control of the performance. You can push as hard as you want on rent increases, make sure the properties are at maximum value at all the time, landscaping, deferred maintenance, everything's taken, you own it. So it's just a different feeling. So what has been a learning lesson though for you through the years? I mean, you started with 4 units, and now you're where you're at. So what's been some of the biggest learning lessons that you've had?
Yeah, patience is a really big thing. I my wife will laugh when we think back to my personality when we first got together. I was like cram everything I can. Like if we got an hour between now and when we're supposed to be somewhere, like, hey, can we run down to the beach and like jump in the lake quick? Or is there a quick hike that we can do over the next 45 minutes? I mean, I would try to just pack everything, and I was a go 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 kind of guy. Real estate is a game that certainly has is about hustle and working hard, but it's also about being diligent and patient, and it's saying no time and time and time and time and time again
Yeah.
to make sure that the things you do say yes to, they ideally both go to plan and exceed plan. And thus far I've been able to do that. So sometimes going a year and a half without doing a single transaction, that's tough. Like, that eats at you, and it hurts. But it's something that I do attribute to the success that
Yeah.
ultimately I've been able to have with the portfolio. Just being patient and making sure that when I do pull the trigger on an opportunity, that it's something that I really believe in. So
Yeah. You make your
it's
money on the
taken,
buy.
yeah, it's definitely taken um, a slight change of what my DNA is, my personality is. So
Well, and though, after you purchase it, you're the one that has to execute on a business plan. So it's got to be the right buy. You can't just overspend on a property, manage it right, and then after you've done everything right, you still don't get any kind of return because you essentially gave your equity away when you purchased it. You gave it to the sellers, them doing work that they truly didn't do on. So I totally get it, and it takes time to find the right deals, and
yeah,
there's got to be certain elements to the property that maybe signify a greater value add, something that other people just don't want to take the time to do. But once
yep.
those properties come along, you execute fast, you take it down, your commitment is all the way through, and um, after you execute on a business plan, it's worth it. It's fun. It's enough to do it again.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's about building the kind of lifestyle that you want to create for
Yeah,
yourself. And that's something that my wife and I have been very diligent about over the years, is proactively planning about what our goals are, what we want our lifestyle to look like. So that way, as I'm going to work every day, having conversations, underwriting deals, looking at properties, the shiny objects are jumping out all over the place. I have a framework to go back to be able to say, does this allow us to get closer to what those goals are for our lifestyle, for our family? Or does this likely push us away? Or how much risk are we taking between getting further to where we want or potentially pulling us back in the wrong direction?
yeah,
And that has pushed me to say no to a lot of opportunities that if I were just single me, I would have probably just bulldozed, full steam ahead. So the like I say, that framework of what my wife and I are looking to build for our family has been tremendously important.
yeah, yeah. No doubt, for sure. And having that clear vision ahead is huge. At least gives you your purpose and clarity, and then know where you're going. So very cool. What would be the biggest thing you could tell a beginning real estate investor on their journey coming into the industry or trying to figure out what they want to do next?
Yeah, just be yourself. Just be yourself. There's
Yeah,
too often I've gone to a real estate conference, and everyone is chasing the haven't done a deal, but now I'm going to syndicate, and I'm joining 8 other people in a syndication on 100 unit deal or 200 unit deal or this or that, and their percentage is like this
yeah,
of what the deal is, and their upside is like this. And if that's what they want to do, great. But I do feel like a lot of the conversations I've had with people have gone down that path. It's been more because it's like the cool thing to do, and they were convinced by a guru that, you know, bigger is always better and syndication's the best approach. And the reality is like, hey, just figure out what your goals are for your family. What kind of lifestyle do you want to have? What kind of income do you want to create? And then, reverse engineer and figure out what path you could take to get there. For some, that's owning 5 rentals and just self-managing, not getting any bigger than that, pay the darn things down and keep it simple. And then if you want more income, like sell the worst house and go buy a nicer one that has higher rents and then work to pay that down, right? Like having 5 homes that each rent for $3,000 a month that you end up netting 10 grand a month in cash flow. That's awesome. Like if that's what you want and fits your lifestyle best, like freaking rock on. A buddy of mine that I knew back from my college days. So he did. And like he had like 5 houses that he rented in a college town. He was a travel nurse, lived in a van most of the year, like cruising around to ski resorts and just cruising
Living
around.
life.
Yeah, cruising around the country, like doing what he wanted to
Yeah.
do. And he wasn't chasing deals. Like he wasn't out there hustling every day. He found these handful of properties that fit what he wanted well. In the college market, what's cool is all of those units turn at the same time, right? It's like school gets out, it's time to turn the unit. So he was always home for like a 2 to 3 week period. And then he was basically free the rest of the year. He had maintenance people and stuff that were on call for any emergencies, so he didn't have to deal with them. It was a portfolio that fit his lifestyle really well, and I commend him for what he built. So, my wife and I, again, we looked at our framework for what we wanted our life to look at and what our income and net worth goals were. And that's where I've tried to build a portfolio around that. And I've avoided going after too aggressively larger deals because I've been able to find deals that are smaller that cash flow much better, that I was able to pick up myself, that I was able to use creative financing, that I got larger chunks of equity, but being able to stay closer to home, and it's worked really well for us. So just be yourself and reverse engineer what your lifestyle goals are to figure out what your real estate business income is going to need to look like to fit into that.
Yep, that's huge. You hit it spot on. If somebody wants to reach out, get a hold of you, learn more about yourself, get some ideas, some potential advice, how can they reach out?
Yeah, jfhcapital.com. I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn. So, would love to get a chance to chat further with anybody, and, happy to help however I can as people look to, try to build their careers and, build that lifestyle income that they're looking for.
Very cool. Joel, appreciate you coming on the show today, and I'll certainly be following you, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Josh.